Good morning, everyone. Wow. Sorry that we are starting a little bit late, but I heard there was a queue, so we wanted to respect everybody, and hopefully almost everybody is in real life, not in the metaverse. Also in the metaverse, maybe because we also have a live stream. So for those of you who are willing to share today with friends or colleagues, then you can refer them to the website of immersivtechweek.co, and they can also watch this session today. What I would like to do to start is to read something out loud from the rough guide, The Internet, which I recently found in the attic. I think it's about 30 years old, because it's an explanatory guide about the Internet. And it's funny, because if you substitute the Internet with the metaverse, then maybe it applies also to today and to the coming period. So forgive me by starting with reading out something from a book, for those of you who still knows this. Okay, so you don't catch a train or fly or even walk, but you do travel here. You may find the metaverse on the computer in front of you, but it's still foreign. It has its own culture, customs, and language, and wherever you come from, it's always somewhere else. The big advantage is that you don't have to fill in any forms or queue in immigration. The Internet, or the metaverse in this case, is both home and away. In fact, it is probably the most foreign place around, not because it is far away, but because it touches so many places. You can visit someone in New Delhi or chat to somebody in New York, get a thesis from Germany, and find out the news in Russia. Apparently, 30 years ago, they also wanted news from Russia. You don't take a backpack with you, and the only food money you need is enough to pay your pizza for your delivery person. And to take the comparison a bit further, the metaverse, of course it says Internet here, but the metaverse is largely uncharted. Of course, someone somewhere knows about their bit of the metaverse, but no one knows it all. And often the biggest fun is finding out about it. There are about 30 million people online. Can you imagine? 30 million people online. In thousands of different areas, chatting and shouting at each other. Well, that still happens. All of them bring their own point of view to the one cyberspace environment. This is how you meet the different cultures and how they meet you. Bear with me, just 2 more paragraphs. Imagine, the attention span for text is already gone. It's too long for a tweet or Mastodon. And as the technology moves on, it is possible to see the world just sitting at your computer. Already, people are talking to each other face-to-face, online, through the video site of the metaverse. Others play games in groups all over the world. Who knows what the future will bring? 30 years later, and maybe we're just doing the game all over, I don't know, but I think there's quite a metaphor between the emergence of the Internet and now the emergence of the metaverse. Some say a new iteration of the Internet. Very much welcome to today. I would like to keep it short for my introduction. I will do a small presentation later from my side. By the way, my name is Harmen. I'm the co-founder of the Sharing Cities Alliance, but we'll talk about that later. Today, Metaverse the City is a program that we are running this whole year with different partners. Today's partners are the city of Rotterdam and the province of Zuid-Holland. But we have speakers from different backgrounds who we all would like to have on stage, share their perspective on what the metaverse means for our cities or for our living environments. After which there is room for questions, of course, and a little panel session. And we'll be well in time before the rest of the program and for some soccer game, I don't know. I would like to have this as a safe space to share. So we can either acclaim that we're all experts on the metaverse, or we acclaim, and that's maybe a bit safer, to say nobody really knows. You know, this should be a journey, not only today, but also the coming period. It's a journey. We're finding it out. We have like 100 different people who will have 100 different definitions around the metaverse. Please feel free to just share your opinions in the Q&A or your questions, and there are no stupid questions around the metaverse at this stage. To start with, now let me first introduce all the speakers briefly. We have Boorsma, who will do the opening keynote, Chief Digital Officer of the City of Rotterdam, amongst other titles he has also overseas. Roland van der Heijden, also City of Rotterdam Program Manager for Digital City. Then we have Tristan van Grevenbroek, who is, amongst other programs, also running a metaverse project at the province of Zuid-Holland. By the way, if I walk too much, tell me. We had I remember a few months back also an event here in the city of Rotterdam, and somebody told me, okay, should I move or can I just stand still? Well, if somebody thinks it's too annoying, tell me. Then we have Manon den Dunnen, who is working as a strategy, let's say, specialist, yes, that's a good one, at the Netherlands Police. And of course, Marloes Pomp, who will enlighten us about her opinion and perspective on the metaverse. She does a lot of things around DAOs. I will not explain if you don't get it. Blockchain, AI, and she will be presenting also an exploration she did with the city of Rotterdam at 1 after our program. I think it's time to begin. Bas, can I invite you to the stage? Bas Boorsma, give him a round of applause from Rotterdam.
Good morning, everyone. No slides. Just a few minutes of your time before we move on to Roland van der Heijden, who's our true hero in building a digital twin in the city of Rotterdam. So we're going to hear so much from him in terms of what he does and what his team is doing, which is wonderful. I'm going to keep it short, but I'm going to start out with a few questions. Who thinks that the metaverse is a hype? Can I see fingers? Well, that's a lot of people. So if you thought it was worth your time being here, then you're probably going to think it's not entirely a hype, and it's going to be mature at some point in time. Who thinks that it's serious, but it's actually not really mature yet? Pretty much everyone. Who thinks that the metaverse is not just a gadget, but is going to be directly relevant to all of our cities? Can I again see fingers? That's a lot. Very gratifying. I would agree. I would agree that it's early and that a lot of developments need to take place. We just heard from Harmen in terms of 30 years of internet history, and we're still evolving. I always like to make the joke that if you think of the entire journey of digitalization, and you would compare that to Lord of the Rings, then Frodo has just left the Shire. We're still early in the story. That said, there is a lot we can learn from history, and you, Harmen, you just actually went back into history 30 years. I would like to go back actually several hundreds of years. If you think of industrial revolutions, whenever there was one, there was a new technology at the cradle of that technological revolution, at the industrial revolution. Think steam engine, think electricity. And what it always did is first to just moderately change an old world, just incrementally so. And then many years would pass, and at one point, poof, the whole world would shift. It would shift not just from an optimized old world, but it would suddenly move into a new world. We're currently living a design shift, and this time it's powered by digital technologies, like electricity or a steam engine in the past. And we started to use it to really optimize an old world. And my favorite example is always music. For those of you old enough, you all remember us buying vinyl records and cassette tapes. We would go, in the rain to a record shop, and we would buy our favorite music. And then digital came along, and what digital did is it actually optimized an old world. It changed the format. It went from vinyl record to the compact disc. And it was an improvement in terms of the audio quality, but it didn't change the industry. You would still go on your bicycle in the rain to the same record shop to buy that compact disc. But then several years later, decades later, we had Spotify and iTunes, and then it did change. We no longer go to a record shop, or most of us don't. It's the actual total industry, the way it's being delivered, the way artists get contracted, all of these things have just changed enormously. And music was early, but this is now again happening in so many other industries. We've seen the world of finance do the same. And the technologies that help in that process change too. The next iteration is very likely to be immersive technologies that allow for a design shift in terms of how we learn, how we work, how we play, how we provide government services to our citizens, but also interact with our citizens. That's where we currently stand, on the eve of that next move where we're actually really leaving that old world and create new ones, whether they're real or virtual, but always powered by these new technologies. And yes, this has a lot to do with cities. This has everything to do with cities. Our cities globally are expanding. It is estimated by the year 2050, 67% of the world population will live in cities. Only 1/3 will live outside cities. In order to accommodate that, in order to manage all the services, energy, education, whatever, we're going to really need the best of technologies, the best of designs to get us there. And not as a gadget, but because this is actually one of the direst moments in humans' history. We have a climate change problem, and I think we can all agree. We need to science class ourselves out of the problem. And I think these new technologies are part of the solution. We need to get us there. This is why I'm very happy that as a city at Rotterdam, we have started out with building a digital twin that will encompass the entire city, adding a dimension to how we live, interact, next to the physical one and the social one, and we'll hear more from Roland on that topic. But not as a gadget. Imagine an environment where we can actually invite people in virtually and see what is going to happen to their neighborhood, and to have those people experience what is being proposed and to co-create. Imagine your children coming into that metaverse of the neighborhood to actually jointly plan that play garden. Now, this should go there, this should go here, this is more fun that way. And not just as a voice, as an opinion, but to actually co-decide, to have a collaborative process in place where we can make this happen. Think of an environment where we are actually able to see all of the built materials, all the building materials being used in the built environment, and to understand when they come up for reuse for circular economic purposes. If you do that, the metaverse becomes a marketplace for the circular economy. That's enormous. So these are examples of things that we hope and plan to do. By building the digital twin with an open urban data platform underneath, we hope that the city of Rotterdam is among the lead pioneers bringing the city into the metaverse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bas, for always, I think, a very invigorating opening of an event. Thank you so much. Is there somebody who already has a question for Bas, or in general, or a remark? Otherwise, we could also go to Roland, also from the city of Rotterdam, and then take the first round of questions. But you may. So if somebody is here, not yet, right? Okay. We'll take it to a next level. So indeed, starting quite open and explorative. And Roland, we work with you, Roland. Good to see you again.
Good morning, everybody.
Please feel free to start your presentation. You have some slides, so if they can be up, that would be perfect. There's some water here, and I would just take it away. The clicker is here.
So, good morning, everybody.
Roland van der Heijden.
So, I hope to be as inspirational as Bas did to you. So, for me, at this moment, is the kickoff of the premiere for a new story that we as Rotterdam try to promote and to develop the coming up years. So, I really hope you like this and that we can shed some light on what we think that the metaverse is. You could say that the metaverse light, as we call it, already exists. And first let's start with the name. Metaverse, all kind of names, multiverse, universe, digital universe. I think in essence it doesn't matter what kind of name you give to it, but it's more like a kind of movement that we see. And Metaverse now, of course, is promoted by Meta, Mark Zuckerberg. But you can also think of some other kind of definition, and maybe that's something that we're now here for, to think about how we can also be a part of this development and what it should be. Now, what I said, we see already what we call betaverses. You see all kind of, you could call point solutions, what show some kind of light on what the metaverse could be in the future. For now, just small developments, but at some point they will come together. And where you can see it, I think it's very obvious where you can see the first elements of the new metaverse is when you look at our youth. When I look at my children most of the time spent in a digital surroundings, and not just playing games, but also socializing and being there with others and chatting, etc. So they're really, where I went to a bar when I was young, they go to some kind of digital space. And of course, COVID also showed how much that new digital world has an impact on us. The way we live, the way we work, completely transformed when COVID happened. And the war in Ukraine, also I think maybe a sad example, but also a good example of how you see on all levels how digital is a part of the whole thing. For example, when you look at drones, when you look at the 40,000 Starlink satellites from Elon Musk or other things, all are a part of that new development. Companies like Nike or others who spend billions of dollars in creating a new position in that new digital world. For example, had a nice movie on YouTube about that to see. And of course, the emergence of the non-fungible tokens, how we, with blockchain and other techniques, created sort of digital ownership. Of course, very much related also to digital art, in which we all see all new kinds of developments, all what you could say betaverses of that new metaverse. The impact on climate and tourism. And maybe for me, I don't have the time here to show that movie, but I really would suggest that you look it up on the internet. A movie about, a movie about a mother who was brought to a virtual surroundings in which her deceased daughter was brought to life again. And when you see that, then for me it was really an eye-opener on the impact of emotions that can be attached to this kind of developments. And it really opened my eyes in thinking, okay, this is why the metaverse will happen for me. And it also, of course, raises that question that's also very appealing to everybody, I think, to think about. Do we go to die in the metaverse? Or do we become immortal there? Something to think about. And if so, what does that mean for us and for the world? And what I also thought was very much explaining to me how this metaverse could work was when I read the book from Yuval Harari, Sentience. I don't know if you also read it. But he talks about the imaginary layer. And that imaginary layer is a layer that we people have created on top of our real physical world, in which we put our values and the things that we find worthy in. And that started already 1,000 years ago with people making drawings in caves, but it's also how we created religion or political systems. They're all in part of that imaginary layer where we find our values in. And you could say that the metaverse, in some extent, is the ultimate imaginary layer, a layer which we can create the values completely and design them completely as we want them to be. So when you look at all those betaverses, at some point they will come together. And that is where I think the metaverse really exists. So the metaverse is not the single solutions or the single developments that we see, but it's a number of things coming together. At first, all kinds of techniques, AI, blockchain, immersive, quantum, Web 3.0. At some point, all these techniques will enhance each other, will intertwine with each other and will enhance each other. And then some kind of acceleration will happen. And that's, I think, the basis for the metaverse. The same you see on data. Data becomes much more interoperable, and software also. And also very important, the understanding that we people have that we need to work together. So the creation of networks over our own silos is becoming much more normal, and we understand that we need each other to develop this whole new kind of reality world, you could say it. And then, of course, that will lead, I think, to the integration of those metaverses, and then you will see the real metaverse emerge. And key word in that, in my opinion, interoperability. Interoperability not only on what is mainly recognizable for a lot of people on technical sense or semantic meaning, but also of functional or organizational or juridical or other layers. So interoperability has multidimensional impact on it, but I think it's really the key word to make all those metaverses connect to each other and that eventually become what we then at this moment call the metaverse. So, how could you define? Let's make clear that this definition is just the first, first try to enhance or to grasp the concept. It's not written in stone. But for us, the metaverse at this moment is a digital reality, digital world that's completely intertwined with all us people on all kind of levels, with the social reality we live in. And we can move completely fluidly in that metaverse. We are footloose and we can move completely fluidly from one surroundings to the other surroundings. And wherever we are, we can always undertake all kind of interaction. And that dynamics, that eventually will create that metaverse. But one step back, in Rotterdam, we already were thinking about this, and Bas already mentioned this. Where do we come from and how do we come to the metaverse? And how do we see the relation between the metaverse and what we call the digital urban community? And that all starts with us people, the social reality, which stands for us people and the way we communicate, the way we interact with each other, the way we behave. But we're doing that always somewhere. We're physical beings, so we're always somewhere. So that those people, or we people, always are in some kind of physical reality. And that physical reality is of influence on how we behave and how we interact. We talk differently when we're at the church than we're at the marketplace. So that physical surroundings is of influence on us. And the other way around, of course, also. We're constantly shaping that physical surroundings around us. And that dynamics between those social and physical reality, in the context of the city, you could call that the traditional cities. This is the way we shaped our cities for centuries. We and the physical surroundings around us. And in this thinking, we see digital mainly as a part of the solutions. We see problems in our traditional social physical reality, and then we have digital as an instrument to solve those traditional problems. Or maybe one step further, people see it like some kind of parallel reality. Not a part of the reality we live in, but some kind of reality next to us, where we need to defend ourselves against. Because we see all kinds of things popping over out of that digital reality, and we find it disturbing. Like privacy issues, or in Holland, the toeslagenaffaire, the things like that. But we believe that is no longer the case. And we see the city shifting from what we call a social physical city towards a social physical digital city. And as you see, there are also two new dimensions coming in. So this is a whole new phenomena. And when you look at it, then you see also that it's very important to make that connections between those realities. Now, and that's where also for us the thinking about the digital twin is coming in. We see the digital twin as a means to connect that digital with that physical world, and to bring those two together. And that's what we're now developing at this moment, just as we speak. But we think that also will go one step further. And we think that the digital twin will evolve into what we call a digital urban community, in which that social world, I see that is putting wrong, that this should be here. The digital twin, it's about the physical and the digital world, sorry for that mistake. But So the digital twin is about the relation between the digital and the physical world. And the digital urban community is about the relation between those three worlds together and how they are interacting on each other. So this is where we think that we as a city are going towards a digital urban community. And when you compare that to the metaverse, then you could see some recognition there, but also some difference maybe. At first, the metaverse, of course, is defined by being a footloose surroundings in which people completely move fluidly on the social digital dimension mainly. Sometimes also towards the physical world, but that's mainly a random connection. So you could say that the metaverse is a social digital, is mainly a digital reality, connects to the social reality, but it's also worldwide. The digital urban community we see as also footloose. You can connect in that